Hello and welcome to Cinematic Cynicism. I decided that I was going to start doing movie reviews again. Now these are older movies, usually ones that I find in discount bins, or more appropriately I go to a store where they're disposing of their video rentals, and I get them for about $1 a shot. One of these is not $1. It was borrowed from a friend, or actually lent to me, because I believe he felt that I would have been somewhat impressed by that. But I had never seen Inferno, movie from 2016 based on the Dan Brown novel starring Tom Hanks and Felicity Jones. Now, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I've seen the first two. I do not own the first one, but I do own the second one. I think that if they're following Brown's novels to the letter, which I would imagine they're probably not, they're probably taking some kind of artistic license with it. But this one made me more likely to read a Dan Brown novel now. I didn't buy into the hype and all the nonsense. The religious groups were going batshit crazy with this thing, and you had people like reading into it and everything. It's a damn mystery novel, man, and it's geared towards a certain audience. So I'm actually considering reading a few Dan Brown novels now because I'm quite interested. But like I said, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Far from perfect, but it kept my attention the entire time, and it kept me distracted from the ills of the world. So there we go. The second movie that I watched, I was hesitant to watch this movie. I was hesitant to even bother with it because I am not a fan of John C. Reilly in the slightest little bit. This movie, however, changed my opinion on the man's abilities to act. I'm speaking of Stan and Ollie. Now, it's also got Steve Coogan in it. I gave it a 3 out of 5. The historical accuracy is an issue with me when it comes to period pieces, and especially when it's kind of a biographical piece. With the BBC having their hiring limitations and their diversity issues that they have, and this was a BBC production, or at least was in part. To be quite honest, when they broke it down and they were showing how popular Laurel and Hardy's movies were in American cinemas, they had a mixture of African American and European Americans all in the same theater. This was rarely, if ever, the facts. Because at the time they were segregated theaters. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that they should bring back segregated theaters in any way, shape, or form. I'm opposed to segregation of any type, just to clarify that. But I don't think it was an accurate representation. Now, I cannot speak for the racial issues in Europe, or more appropriately England, because I know that there were a few, actually I believe it was in Ireland, where they stayed at a hotel, and there was a young colored lady who was working there, and I'm not quite sure exactly how accurate it was for Europe at the time, but I do know that America was not that way. This was, I other than the historical inaccuracies, I gave it a 3 out of 5. I'm not sure if I actually said that before, but it was a good film. It changed my opinion on John C. Reilly as an actor, not as a comedian by any means, but Coogan and Reilly had the mannerisms and the actual speech patterns of the characters down quite well. This was a really good movie, and as a longtime fan of Laurel and Hardy, I was actually very impressed with this. Next on the list, also for $1, as was the last movie, Legend, starring Tom Hardy, as well as Emily Browning. This was an amazing film. Had I not read the fact that it was Brian Helgeland who directed it, wrote and directed it, I would have swore it was just a really weak showing for Guy Ritchie. This was a very good gangster film, but based on true events from what I understand as well. This was really, really good. Now, the film came out in 2016. I had not seen it before, hadn't even ever heard of this before, but it was sitting up on the shelf, and as I was looking through them, I decided, what the hell, I'll pick it up. It's only $1. I gave it a 5 out of 5. This was almost a perfect film. If this was my comic reviews, I would probably give it a 4.5 out of 5 or a 4.75. But as my movie reviews are different than my comic book reviews, I decided on the 5.5. This is really good. If you've not seen it, this is really worth at least a viewing. And Emily Browning was brilliant in this film. I've only ever seen her in a few movies, and I wasn't really impressed with the movies that she was in. Not necessarily her performance, but the films themselves. I thought they were weak showings at best. Yeah, like I said, I give it a 5 out of 5. If you get the opportunity and you haven't seen this movie, try to locate it. It's really worth your time. This film was actually lent to me by a friend. It's called Freaks, and it's not the Tom Browning film from way back when about the circus freaks. I don't know what the proper PC term is for it, so bite me. But this one has Bruce Dern in it, and I can't remember the name of the fella because they don't even list his name on the back. But this is, I would say, on par with Brightburn, but a little less villainous. You really can't tell as you're going through the story who the hell's the bad guy, who the hell's the good guy. Is a kid gonna flip the switch, go out and kill a bunch of people? And it's just, the story unfolds before your eyes. It's very hard to read. And with the history that I have with film and literature, being quite familiar with different trends, different genres, this was a really good film. Comic booky in some respects. You've got a world, a dystopian future, but not as we usually see it. This follows the events of the destruction of a large city. I believe it was Dallas. I'm not quite sure. It's eluding me at the moment. Because of these, who they refer to as freaks. These are special children who grow with powers. This child is actually being protected by her father, who is a freak, the grandfather, who is a freak, and the mother has been captured because evidently she's like really powerful. Yeah, I mean, now the females in the movie are very powerful, but the men are kind of equaled out with them. So it doesn't have that whole diversity crap that most movies are peppered with. This is really a good film. From the start to the finish, you're kind of taken on this wild ride where you can't figure out what's going on from one time to the next. And as the story unfolds, it's just a really good film. Gave it a 4 out of 5. Had this film had a larger budget, I think I probably would have given it a higher rating. Now, I mean, I'm by no means stating the fact that large-scale films are better, but I think they would have, if they would have had a little more cash to pop into this effort, I think they would have actually went over the top. And I mean, I don't know that I'd be capable of giving a more than a 5 out of 5 because mathematically that just doesn't make any sense to me. But that will end this one. So, thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye.